Hi, and welcome to the Journey Awakening podcast. I'm your co-host, Ron Ario, along with my co-host, Richard Luminous Melchizedek. And we've got a very special guest for you today. But before I introduce the guest, I just want to explain a little bit about the podcast. Journey to Awakening is really about bringing relevant, authentic, spiritual information, ascension information to really help those that are actually have gone through their awakening or they're on the cusp of going through their awakening so that we can really impact their lives. And we've got a special guest for you today named Holly Berger. And Holly is an artist, a writer, a conscious channel. After her spiritual awakening in 2002, Holly began a conscious relationship with her guides. Her business grew by reputation, creating an international clientele and readership base. Following her spiritual guidance, Holly created Lightworkers Alliance. Although it is her business name, she considers an alliance of light to be created under what she often calls Father, Mother, God, Goddess, Creator, and Source of all that is. So, welcome, Holly.
Thank you. It's really an
Very,
honor to be here.
we're very happy to have you. And being that my co-host Richard has such a past connection with you, I'm just going to hand it over to him right now and let him ask you some questions.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say, Holly, it's an honor to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
The reason being why I reached out to you was just you played a pivotal role for me in one period of my life where it was before I had my firstborn and I was kind of going through a spiritual awakening. We'll get into the details of the pocket prayer book, but this was just something I used to carry with me all the time. And it was kind of like you were my first kind of go to just pure source channel that I would turn to for divine connection and awakening at that point in my life. So, I don't think it was years later, I kind of reached out and told you a little bit how much of an impact you made on my life. But so I really just wanted to take the opportunity to connect and help get your message out because I know how powerful they are and I know how beautiful they are and just pure source light. So
Thank you.
once again, I'm honored to have you on. And the first thing I kind of wanted to touch base with you, when you say Father, Mother, God, Goddess, Creator, Source of all that is, what does that mean?
Well, it's sort of a combo that I created because I work with so many different people and I wanted something that was helping people detach from any judgment they might have of words like God or Goddess. And I also wanted to embrace the divine feminine. So Father, Mother, God, Goddess, Creator, Source of all that is, it just sort of rolls together for me when I begin my sacred space or my prayers to attach to a vertical frequency and work with the highest frequencies of light. And I find that when I think of Father, Mother, God, Goddess, Creator, Source of all that is, that it's always me going up as if I'm on an elevator. I don't stop it. I let it go as high as it can go. So I'm always connecting as high as I can in that moment. And as we grow, we have integrations, we release, we change. So we always need to be sure that we're not connecting to an old place, that we're connecting to the highest frequencies of light. So that's sort of what it means to me is always being conscious of connecting with the highest frequency of the I Am presence.
Yeah. And when you say Lightworkers Alliance, is this an actual group or can you explain that as well, please?
Well, it's when I first started channeling, it was sort of like a faucet came on. I had always been clairaudient and hearing things, but it was a mess. And I met some people that helped me clear negative energy. And as soon as that happened, I started hearing. So I was writing everything I heard because to me, it was so profound. It was so, it was just so different from what had happened to me before, which was clutter and craziness. So when I said, what am I supposed to do? What do I do with all this? I was actually working as a painter, like a wall painter at the time. And so I heard Lightworkers Alliance to create that. And so I thought it was a group. I thought, I'll do this, I'll do that. This was sort of, it was at the beginning of people having websites. It was around 2001, I think. And yeah, 2001 too. And so I started a newsletter because that's what we did back then. And then I kept asking questions like, what am I supposed to do with it? And they explained to me, that I misunderstood it. It's not a group. I'm not creating some little group. It's just a consciousness, an alliance of consciousness. And it's an alliance of consciousness for people who work with light. So the Lightworkers Alliance, that's why I have so much free stuff on my website, because it's about just being who you are, just being this person that works with light. You can use the term light worker if you want. Some people don't like it. I work with light. I consider myself a person who works with light. I consider myself a light worker, and I don't have any baggage around that term. But if you do, then change it. You know, use some other term. I don't feel like everybody has to use my terms, just like I don't have to use everyone else's terms. So you can be part of the alliance and not be a light worker. You can be whatever you are, but as long as you're working with pure light, then you are, whether you know it or not.
I understand.
It became.
So I remember, like, I used to take this little pocket prayer book that I bought from you during kind of my spiritual awakening. I even remember when it came, I received this like little parchment paper with it that was tied up, and it had a beautiful drawing or thank you on it from you, which I thought was a really nice touch. And I used to take this book everywhere. Like if I was going to go to work, I would put it in my pocket and I would go with it. And it was such a beautiful reference, and the prayers that were in this book, you know, so I think this is going to be a segue into two parts, kind of, you know, the channeled prayers that are in this book, I just had such a connection to, and there wasn't really one in there I don't think I couldn't relate to or didn't use at some point. Like they were so divinely guided, I felt, and so divinely just called to be in this small little book you could fit in your pocket. And it was kind of like the perfect toolkit for you when you're on the road, starting your spiritual journey, or wherever you are in your spiritual journey, whether you're teaching, meditating. So I want you to just kind of tell us a little bit about, you know, what inspires your writing. And if you don't mind, kind of let's get into the power of prayer.
The power of prayer. I feel like the power of prayer is my whole life. It just sort of enveloped me, and I've held on to it because it just helps me so much. In the beginning, when I was not doing well, when I had a lot of negative energy, I would have a struggle. And I've always written my whole life. I used to handwrite and then, you know, type and then computers. So I began sort of journaling or complaining, you know, processing with my writing. And then all of a sudden this beautiful poetic verbiage would come through. And so I let them accumulate until I had about, I think there's 48 or 50 prayers in the little book. And I started passing them around and giving them to people. And then, you know, people wanted more of them. So I put them in a little book. And so this is the only thing I found, because I just moved, so they're packed. But this was printed in 2007. And so this I printed, I'm not really sure. Can you see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's obviously,
yes.
Yeah. And it was either, I might have printed this on my computer at home. I printed some on my computer at home and then had them stapled, or I might have had them done. There's a little print shop where I used to live. And they're so funny because they've been printing these books since 2007. So they're like, how many books have we printed? And I was like, I don't know. And we were talking about it one day, and I couldn't believe how many they printed. I bet they printed like 600 or 700 of them. And it got to be, I published on Amazon a few years ago because I just, you know, sending them to people and everything. So you got one that I sent you. So
yeah.
A little thank you and everything. And this was an evolution, but after this one, I think there was another evolution with a different cover, but then I cut them in half. And you had the little one, didn't you?
Yeah, it was blue. So
yeah.
It was a small one and it was blue, and it had the Lightworker Alliance symbol on
the logo, yeah.
Yeah.
And so those were printed at a local printer in Longmont, Colorado. So I'm kind of going in a couple different directions here, but so it started out with the prayers, and then what happened is I wanted access to that frequency, and I didn't know how I was getting it. And it was a little scattered when I wanted it. So I realized that I needed to go into meditation. So I started setting sacred space and doing a meditation practice that I do and only writing in that way. And so that's how I write now. If I'm writing spiritual writing, it's always in sacred space. It's always with my guides. And then it just flows through. And then I go back and edit it and kind of clean it up. But my sacred space, I call it vertical, getting vertical, grounded to the core of the earth, connected to the I am presence. That's part of my practice, and I encourage everyone to do it. Like we were talking earlier, you said that you've been on my website to do the free meditation. So they'll teach you so much about how to meditate just by listening to me setting sacred space. And there's one called Getting Vertical, teaches you how to ground to the core of the earth. My guides always tell me that, we're like a building. If we don't have a good foundation, we're going to tip over. We've got to stay vertical. We've got to stay grounded to the core of the earth and keep that connection. So I worked on that.
Beautiful. And I have a question for you, Richard. Because
yeah, go ahead.
For those that have can benefit from Holly's book, the pocket prayer book that you had, which is now I think evolved into Divine Accordance. Am I correct there, Holly?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Well, no. There's two books.
Okay, so the pocket prayer is still there. And the reason I want to ask Richard to expand on this a little bit, because in private, Richard told me, I think he used that book for a year. Was it that long, Richard?
Honestly, it was probably longer. Like I literally, it was kind of, I think when you go through your spiritual awakening, or many levels of spiritual awakening as we go along the journey, that, we all have that one thing that we kind of, would carry with us, whether it was a song, whether it was a prayer, whether it was a certain meditation. For me, at this point in my life, like I said, while I was preparing for my firstborn to come in, it was the pocket prayer book, because it just put me in such a beautiful space. And I just, especially with Holly's terminology, I really related to it. Like we were talking about the Father, Mother, the God, Goddess, source, creator of all. I relate to that. And I feel like it wasn't, meant to just be this way. It was kind of created for everybody. So I felt a really special connection to it. And also, just like you said, there's 48 different prayers in there. There's everything from setting space to clearings to, I remember when I was moving, there was a prayer in there for moving, right? And relocating. I was like, I better get out Holly's prayer for moving because I'm moving,
I used it when I was moving too.
So there's just so many, like there was always a point where I was like, hey, this one's perfect for right now. So
that's why I wanted to ask you that, because so people can get a broader perspective on how it benefited you, because the way you explained it to me was you literally use it everywhere you went. You just like with the movie, but you had it, and there was so many that you can apply it to so many different directions or aspects of your life.
And I think it was like, and each one is just powerful. Like the power of prayer is just a beautiful thing. So they say like prayer is talking to source, creator, and meditation is listening. So carrying that around was a powerful thing for me. Like I said, I felt like I was carrying Holly with me wherever I went. Right. It's just such a pure channel of light that it's just a beautiful thing to have. So
I just want to mention, Richard, I don't know if you knew this, but so there is a table of contents in this book, but if you go through the table of contents, it literally is an ascension process. So it goes from setting sacred space to releasing, and then it goes through all these different types of things that you go through. But there is an order that the guides, I didn't know this when I was, and then it goes to loving yourself, and then how to pray for other people, how to receive blessings, how to sleep, because all get hit with the no sleep thing at some point.
Yeah.
And then more releasing, understanding karma, and then working with genetic filtration, which is their version of, my guide's version of cleaning up the gene pool. And then it goes into death and gratitude. It ends with gratitude. So it's pretty interesting, because that's how I wrote Divine Accordance, is people kept asking me questions. And at one point I printed the book with a paragraph of what it meant. And then I felt like, oh no, that's my ego. And so I took, and then a client of mine, a longtime client, she's like, put that paragraph back in and make it bigger. And so then it opened up some channel in me. And instead of being a paragraph, it became chapters. The Lightworkers, or excuse me, Divine Accordance is the big book. And it's a huge book. It's like 8 by 10 and it's like 300 pages. And I know it can be a little overwhelming for people, but when you're in a process like this, you need it. You need to know that there's a resource for all these crazy things that people go through. I mean, it's not normal what we go through as light workers. We go through self-hatred. You know, we need to know that it's normal to have like just anxiety type self-hatred, that we can pray it away and it goes away like that. That's just an energy trying to stop us. And we need to be able to get rid of it. So that's why I left it. It's this huge book. It's kind of silly, but that's how that came about, was people kept asking me questions. So that book is a way that people can learn to channel if they want to, or whatever they want to do, pray or be happy. I mean, it helped me clear depression.
So for other people, Holly, what would you say the most important action is for those wanting to work with their pure light guides? What is that most important action? Or did you already describe that?
Well, I guess the first thing that pops into my mind, I know it's a redundant word, but the word grounding comes to me. You know, I've tried to use the word anchoring or connecting to the core of the earth, I say sometimes, but it really is about grounding. And we have electricity in our bodies. I mean, that's what an echocardiogram is. It's the electricity of your heart. And that needs grounding just like any electricity does. You can look up earthing online. I love what those people say about grounding. If you don't ground, again, you can't build that pillar of light that you need to receive the light that we want. I mean, we want clarity. We want truth. We want unconditional love. We want to be able to manifest. We want understanding. You know, I don't think light workers all want, you know, race cars and mansions. I mean, maybe some people do, but I think most of the people I run across, they want companionship. They want their partners. They want their ideal work. They want to do their healing work, and they want truth, and they want unconditional love, and they want to heal. And I think grounding, although it's really kind of a small thing to talk about, it is probably the most important way to build yourself up to connect with the I Am Presence.
I just want to add on that, and this is another beautiful thing about your book, or one of your meditations. I always use analogy, like you take your phone and you plug in your phone. Why wouldn't you do that to yourself? You know, why wouldn't we ground? Why wouldn't we connect with source and, you know, align in our cosmic channels, or whatever we want to call them, the pillar of light. So I think that's something, especially for people, you know, on their awakening journey, and that when you're trying to juggle all the frequencies and trying to make sense of everything, the number one thing you can do is to connect and ground, right? So you're kind of allowing your reset time to kind of get back into your space. So for people meditating...
I'm sorry, Richard, can I add one thing to that? You mind?
Sure.
Yeah, because what it brings up for me as well is when you're grounding and you're connecting to your higher source, you're also raising your frequency. And you're raising your vibration. And for so many people out there, they don't understand the concept of cleaning their energy, or raising our vibration is cleaning our energy. And I give people the idea sometimes, like, if you don't brush your teeth for a year, what are your teeth going to look like, right? So if you don't take the time to connect and raise your vibration and clean your energy field every day, what is your life going to look like? And you're going to have a lot of garbage attached to your energy, and that's going to be the reflection that you're experiencing, you know? So I just wanted to add that vibrational aspect.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
So for people meditating and connecting with other beings, benevolent beings, and forming their unique communication with spirit, what kind of advice do you offer them?
Well, that I could talk all day about that. A lot of my work is helping people to release entities. So I'm sort of, like Richard was saying, I'm sort of like a person that you come to see who can say, oh, here's your light. Let's make it like this, you know, our light should be big around us, not little peanuts inside of us. So people often they want so bad. They want things so bad. They want to connect to their guides, and they want to do this and do that. And they end up what my guides show me this, like a sort of like a geometric form. Like we send energy off in weird directions. And this is the exact thing they told me. If you want to connect to Creator, you must go perfectly up and down. Just think of the sun if it were right above you. When you go off to the left or right, it's sort of like going out your wall or going through your roof, and you leave a hole there. And once you come back in, that hole needs to be repaired or anything else can come in. So we create our entrance and exit, and we stay in our physical presence. And then we don't get encumbered with negative energy because the light protects us. So if you jet off to, if you astral project, jet off to experience things, you will end up coming back with something attached. And I know this because I've done it over and over again. And sometimes I still do it. I mean, we're psychic beings. It's really easy for me to let my mind wander. And then all of a sudden I'm like, whoops, and I come back, and then I have to do all the repair work or suffer the consequences. So, I'm always kind of telling people to try to meditate as clean as you can, but we still need to have our people that help us. We need to have a bunch of people that help us. Maybe a person that does massage, a person that does Reiki, a person that clears energy, a person that blesses homes and property. You can go on and on with self-care and self-love. All those people will add to your own energy field increasing by doing their work. We don't do it all. I don't do it all. I have a specialty, and the stronger I am in my specialty, the stronger I am for my community. And then I can go and use others for the other things that I like to do.
That's beautiful.
So
I'd like to validate your work because,
okay.
Because here's the thing. Removing entities is no joke. And to really go down that path and to have that be your specialty, most people cannot really appreciate what you have had to learn, go through in order to master that. And the service you're actually providing for people, it's really hard to quantify monetarily, in that energy exchange, the value you bring. And I'm sure you've experienced people not understanding the value, but I just want to validate you because that specificity that you do is really powerful stuff.
I appreciate that. I hate to admit it, but most of the things that I learned the hard way. I'm trying to teach myself to learn the easy way. Sometimes I still learn the hard way. And that's why I wrote a book about it, because I don't want everybody to learn the hard way. But I do appreciate that. People often ask me, how can I learn to channel, or how can I learn to do what you do? And I always tell them, nobody can do what I do because you have to do what you do. Even if you do exactly what I do, it will be different because it'll be what you do. So you can clear entities, but it won't be the same way that I do it. And I wanted to also clarify, I'm being a little loose with my language. I don't really do anything other than set sacred space and clear the channels. The guides do it all. But if I get involved, I'm really going to get my rear end kicked. That's just a big no-no. And I should be more clear with that, because I don't want people to think that it's some kind of
well, that's the process that you had to learn.
Teach.
That's the process you had to learn, and that was the pain you had to suffer, because I know others that do the same kind of work as you, and I know what they've gone through.
Yeah.
I know what they've experienced physically, and I really, it's a real service that they do to the individuals and humanity. What you take on that level is profound. Really.
It's I often tell people that this isn't a job for me; it's a lifestyle. I always do this. And my friends that know me really well, we passed an accident. I was with a friend the other day. We passed a car accident, and I was checking to see if it was a fatality. And she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, I was checking to see if it's a fatality." And she goes, "Oh, do you have to cross somebody over real quick?" And I was like, "Well, I've done that so many times where I'm just put in situations where I do my work. It's all the time." Yeah. If I wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes I have to pray for whatever's going on. It's a lifestyle. It's a huge change from working an 8-hour job coming home and being free with your time. I'm consistently and constantly in association with my guides. And it's something I actually have this, I want to share this with you real quick, if you don't mind. I have this thing, I call it my corral. And because of the light I carry, there's a lot of things that come and sort of knock on the door. So if I go into places that have a lot of entities, like a hospital or airports, bus stations, bars are really bad, restaurants, I will be inundated with feeling like somebody's tapping me on the shoulder, whispering to me. And so I asked my guides what to do, and they said, you need to create a space around you to hold them back and just say, I'm off duty. So I did a meditation, and I just call it my corral. And I've done it for so many years now that I just ask for my corral when I'm in a public place full of entities. And I ask my guides, keep everybody back. And I also will tell anything that comes to me horizontally, because I only work with vertical light. If you want to talk to me, you have to go through my guides. I have a spokesperson with my high self committee. That's how I work. I don't work with, anybody coming here and, it's because you can. And that's part of the problem with the psychic awakenings is you start hearing all this and you have to say, no, 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 yes. Learn to discern the difference.
100%. I want to just ask you a question about, you just touched base on the higher self, if you don't mind speaking on that and the higher self committee.
So I wish I could draw a picture of it for you. I'm very visual and I'm an artist, so I often communicate visually with people. When I first started working with my guides, I didn't really understand. I didn't know anything about like the names. I was such a novice. I laugh now. It was pretty brutal because I was trying to learn about spirituality. At least I was drawn to do that. But a lot of the people I worked with in my spiritual group at the time were very advanced. So I knew nothing. And what my guides taught me, and I learned everything through meditation. Most everything, probably 80% of what I know. I learned a lot from other people, but I would always go into meditation and talk to my guides about it. So what they showed me is that we have a high self. Everyone has a high self. And the high self isn't one being. Your soul is not comprised of one being. If you look at the soul separations as they come from the I am presence, they separate and separate and separate and separate. And they become multifaceted through lifetimes and experiences. So we have connections to lineages of ascended masters. And the ascended masters are what's given to this planet. They can work on other planets, but let's just talk about Earth to keep it simple. So we have quite a few ascended masters that work on this planet. And then there's levels. So if you just think of yourself, your high self, and creator, just think of those three levels. At the high self level, which is the fifth dimension, all of us have a team of guides that we can work with. So when you have an intuition or a stream of consciousness, it's coming through there. So between the high self and creator, it's like an army of light. So when I pray for something, I'll ask for Archangel Raphael to bring my bags to me at the airport. My bags, meet me at this airport. I'm going, angels, bring them to me. Learned that the hard way once. So you can ask for an angel to help you, but I also often ask creator, because creator will dispense the absolute perfect angel or ascended master or whatever lighted being to help you. And you may have never heard of that being. There's millions of them. And we all have an army of light between high self and creator, but we don't have to manage it. The high self manages it.
Yeah.
So if we can work with our high self and become in tune with those frequencies, it will help us separate from lesser frequencies. So once I attuned to my high self and I learned the tiny increments that it can be off. And it took me probably about 3 years to get really tuned into that. And I set sacred space with you guys before the call. And it takes me about maybe 5 minutes to set sacred space. I always do it the same way. I never veer from that. I don't set fast sacred space. I don't skip steps, because every step is in place for my protection and for my communication. And I want that clarity. So when you're looking at your vertical light, you want to work with your high self. You want to work with the I am presence through your high self. That's how the communion works. That's how the communication works. And I find that is the most efficient and the most pleasant way to work with light.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Seriously, anybody listening to that, they can get so much just from what you just said.
Thank
That's
you.
really, really amazing.
I'm getting emotional.
Like, what would you say is the most used prayer in your prayer book?
The Discord prayer is the one I hear the most about. A lot of people will tell me they're working with this prayer or that prayer at a certain time in their life, but the Discord prayer is pretty interesting. And when I first started passing out the prayers, I think the Discord prayer might have been the first prayer I wrote. Some of the prayers I actually found a prayer in my computer at one point before I wrote the book, and I was like, where did this come from? And I couldn't figure out where it came from, and it took me a while to like get the memory back of channeling it. So sometimes these prayers come from other people and they come back to me and they really hit me. So in the Discord prayer, it's a prayer about releasing discordant energy. And I brought that through when I was having problems with a friend. Now, everyone knows if you're having problems with a friend, it's their fault, right? Causing our problems. They're to blame. They're bad. They said the wrong thing. So I was trying to get past my judgment, and I was just channeling my anger. And then all of a sudden, the Discord prayer came through, and a friend of mine calls it the only love prayer because she said that that's what it's really about. But it's not about you have to stop doing what you're doing. It's about cutting all cords around above and below. Send everything you sent to me back to you, and send everything I sent to you back to me. Help me take responsibility for what I did wrong or what I could do better. And the same for that person. Basically start pushing that person away and just realizing it's just me. And when we take responsibility, which I think if the guides could speak frankly to every one of my clients, they would say, where are you not taking responsibility? But we don't like to hear that because we're hurting, we're suffering. We want to hear that we're doing the right thing, that we're loved, that we have guides, and that we're smart and we're wise and we're deserving of love. So it gets kind of difficult when you're working with those energies where you want to say, hey, you created this. Why did you create it? So the Discord prayer is full of unconditional love. It's really a nice way to say, you're creating this, but let's just take the little part that we can work on in this moment, and let's just say, I allow only love to come to me, and I allow only love to come from me. And that's the basis of the Discord prayer. It's on my website, by the way.
Perfect. When we put up the podcast, we'll definitely put the website link. We'll put up some of the links for Amazon as well, so they can get your book or get the information on the book Divine Accordance. In terms of Divine Accordance, I remember when you were going through the process of writing this, it took you, I want to say, a year or two?
To write Divine Accordance?
Yeah.
It took me 10 years.
10, okay.
Wow.
Did you ever hear that about, what's that book about the South with Scarlett O'Hara? I can't think of the name of it right now. I heard that it took a woman who wrote it 10 years to write it. I heard that years ago, and I was like, why would it take you 10 years to write a book? I always remembered thinking that. And I wrote Divine Accordance, and it was just so badly written that I kept rewriting it. And I kept asking people to edit it and read it, and so many people read it, and they're like, maybe work on this. And I just kept studying writing and then going back and correcting so many mistakes. And it took me 10 years.
So Divine Accordance, if you were to kind of summarize it for everyone watching this, what is the message from the book for the person who's reading it? What is it they're going to get out of this book?
Richard, I wish I could answer that. I have tried to write like the bio and the back. I basically send it to like people that work for me and clients and stuff and say, can you just please tell me what to write here? Because everyone gets a different piece of it. You know, it's just a light path. It's different for everybody. You know, the prayers work differently with people. And I think the message is that there's hope, you know, that there's a way to get out from underneath the tyranny, you know, the tyranny of the dark or the oppression. You know, there's a way to get out from underneath it. And it is by being the divine light that we are, you know, exemplifying what's in our hearts. You know, the guides always tell me that when babies come when babies are born, they're not unhappy. Even sick babies are not unhappy. You know, they smile as soon as they can, and they're pure. They learn to be unhappy. They learn to be sad by their experiences. And that's what we are, you know, we're these young infants in the universe. You know, we're here on the planet. We come with our wisdom, you know, we come from this place of wisdom, but we give all that away so that we can bring it here and anchor it and figure out how to get it to this planet. So Divine Accordance does that for people. It helps them discover their personal gifts by clearing out the clutter and helping people realize that a lot of the bad behavior we have or the mistakes we make they're just learned. They could be learned from our parents, or they could be learned from 10 lifetimes ago that we're connecting to some frequency to heal in this lifetime. You know, I talk a lot about the two ways of receiving energy typically is archetypally. So it comes through your past lives, or genetically it comes through your blood. Both of those things, archetypal connections and genetic connections, are in our DNA. They're both in there. And in our DNA is our genetic connections and our personal past lives, but also the genetic connections and personal past lives of everyone. It's all in our DNA. So every time we clear, every time we heal, we're doing it for the masses. And critical mass, I'm sure you guys know what critical mass is, but for anybody who doesn't, critical mass is 51%. You don't win because you get 100%. You win because you're 51%. So all we have to do with light is hit 51%. You know, and we're attuning that right now. I feel like the earth is there. Is that we're attuning it. People are waking up. Everywhere I go, people are waking up.
Yeah. Just even the conversations that you can have now compared to 2 years ago, I find is a drastic change in terms of, like you said, people are waking up everywhere. Everyone's looking for more information, you know, and just the level of conscious conversation that you can have now seems to be a lot more expanded than what it was before. It was kind of somewhat in the spiritual closet, so to speak. Right?
Yeah. I used to tell people I was an artist, you know. If they gave me spiritual friends, I would tell them, but I don't talk a lot about my work to people. I always say, who told you about me? You know, because then I know kind of what's coming, because it's like, how do I talk about it? I'm gonna go into the channel and I'm gonna work with the guides. So I don't even know what they're gonna say to you. I don't know what I do for you.
You know, and to piggyback on what you said, Richard, in the energy now compared to even a year ago, it just seems there is no time to deviate from paying attention to your internal self. I mean, there's no time. Everything is about what's happening right now, and the energy of transformation is just crazy good, intense, you know?
Yeah.
So, and which leads me to my next question is about those that are starting their journey to awakening. Many are on their journey to awakening and they don't even know it. Their life is going through chaos, and it's going to be some time before they look back and go, oh, that was the beginning of my awakening. I didn't know I was going crazy. I thought I was just going crazy, you know?
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for those that are maybe on it, but those watching this right now that resonate and go, well, maybe I'm starting my awakening right now, or for those that are actually conscious that they're going through something special, what advice do you have so they can embrace that path?
So there's a couple things that are coming up, and I'm just going to go with it because I think if I would have prepared for that question, I probably would have a different answer. One of the things that my guides taught me to do early on was to ask questions. And I didn't know how to ask questions. I was very into sort of the mom martyr position, you know, and had a really big emotional breakdown at one point, and I kept asking them, I'm like, why aren't you helping me? Why aren't you taking this pain away? And the only thing I heard from them is, what do you want? So I couldn't sleep, but you know, then I'd fall asleep at like 3 o'clock in the morning and I'd wake up an hour later. And as soon as I woke up, I would hear a voice say, what do you want? And I would say, what do you mean, what do I want? You know what I want. I want the pain to go away, or blah, blah, blah. And then I realized that I wasn't really asking for anything. I was just talking And then I would say things about other people. I want so-and-so to do this. I want this to happen. I want this to happen. And I got so emotional that I just couldn't talk about it. So I made myself concentrate. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And the only thing I could think of that I wanted was tennis shoes.
Was what? Was what?
Tennis shoes, like sneakers.
Hot dog.
I know, it's like, yeah. And so the story was that I had 3 kids, and so I was buying their shoes. And my feet are kind of weird, so I can't just go to some cheap place and buy shoes. I have to find narrow shoes that fit my feet and everything. And so I just had just didn't have great walking shoes. And I started laughing later. I'm like, gosh, an angel comes down from heaven and says, what do you want? And you're like, shoes, So what they taught me to do was to ask more and more questions, because I was talking a lot about my pain or my experience or just nonsense. And so if creator is going to ask you to, give me 3 questions, your high self committee, 3 questions. What you can do is, because I'm an artist, I've done a lot of art study. And one of my heroes is Julia Cameron. She wrote The Artist's Way. And in The Artist's Way, you're always trying to disconnect from the left side of your brain and get into the right side of your brain. And she has people meditate. She doesn't call it meditating. She calls it doing your morning pages. And she has people write out in hand, longhand, 2 pages of whatever. And so I started falling back on that practice. And I would write everything I needed to complain about, everything that was bugging me. And then I would write down 3 questions. And then I would meditate. So the reason, I'm sorry, this is a long story, but
it's okay.
Do not know how to ask questions. I will sit in sessions and I have people write down their questions before sessions, not send them to me, just write them down and bring them with you. You can have 50 questions, you can have 3, it doesn't matter. And people will say, well, when I got this job, blah, 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 and then my car, and then blah, 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 blah. And they'll tell these stories, and you can just see they're twirling around in this energy. And what they're trying to say, how do I get out of this energy? But they don't know how. And I won't let people go on too long because, they're paying me for a session. I want to help them. So, the guides will come through and they'll say, what is your question? When the energy lowers, the guides recede. So, well, I try to hold the connection and say, you haven't asked a question. And some people break down and cry. They don't know what their question is. So I help them get in touch with the yearning in their heart that they're so afraid to be in because of the disappointment they've experienced. So we can get into our yearning, then we can start creating. Our high self isn't going to let us create something that won't serve the future. You want a new job? You know what they say to almost every single person that wants a new job? Tell me about the day you got that job. Tell me about when you applied for that job. What was the interview like? Were you happy? So we're disgruntled about our job, but then we want to create a new one, but we're disgruntled. We can't create. So we got to go back into, I was so happy. I was so pleased. Everything hasn't gone as well as I thought. So I want to feel that again. I want to feel so happy and so pleased. So getting into the frequency of creation and saying, God, how do I get happy again? How do I feel attuned with my environment at my work? And then see if a new job comes, because sometimes you don't need a new job. Sometimes you need a new attitude or a raise or maybe a change in the staff that makes it better for you, or a change in environment. There's a lot of weird things that can shift to make us happy, and we don't always know what they are. So we need to learn to ask the right questions. How do I get happier? How do I feel better? What motivates me to do whatever I want to do? So if you want to lose weight, what motivates me to exercise? Show me that. Show me what's going to motivate me to change my eating habits. Whatever it is you're focused on, learn to ask the right questions. And if you sit with a group of friends and tell them, I'm going to pray and ask 3 questions. Will you help me make these better? You'll get some good advice. They'll tell you, that question's not going to bring this. Try this. They'll help you reword it. So that's kind of what I would encourage people to do in their lives, is learn to ask questions, but talk to God, creator, source, I am presence. Learn to ask those questions.
So I'm going to ask you a question, if that's okay. So in terms of manifesting, you kind of, I think, just touched a little bit on this, but it just drew my attention a little there. So Do you have any kind of tricks that you want to share, or is there any thing you want to express in terms of how we can manifest quicker, how we can be in the right space to manifest? What is the average person doing wrong when they're trying to manifest?
Well, I would like to say I'm an expert at manifesting. I think we all are. So I manifest exactly what's appropriate in the moment. Now, that just could make you so mad because I'm trying to take responsibility for not having exactly what I want in the exact moment. You know, so we just bought a house, and we bought a house in a place that we like to vacation in Florida. And we found the house, and it was just serendipitous. It was so many of our check marks, and it's by water. It has these magnificent trees, which are very important to me. And the energy was what we wanted. And it's very isolated. It's not in a very popular area. It's by a bunch of rivers that we like to kayak on. And it was for sale by owners. We communicated with the owners, and everything was like on a handshake. Like everything was perfect. And then within a week it crumbled. And I talked to a real estate lawyer, and she's like, nope, walk away right now. And I was like, oh, so we had to walk away. I was heartbroken. Well, then it kind of rekindled, and then we had to walk away again.
Wow.
The whole time I'm like, you know, why'd you bring me to this house? What am I supposed to do here? I don't understand. I'm supposed to be manifesting. Why is it happening right now? Why should I wait? You know what I mean? Why wait 2 weeks or what? Okay, fine. If it's not this house, it'll be something better. I know that. I'm a spiritual person. So I asked my guides. The process isn't flawless, unfortunately. I asked my guides what to do, and they gave me a little bullet list. I think there was 5 things. I should try to find that piece of paper. But one of the things was be very generous. One of them was things will work out the way they're supposed to, so why are you worried? And so I just kept going back to that list. I put it on the refrigerator. My husband and I would stare at it and go, yes, that's going to happen. That's going to be fine. And then we got a phone call, and the house was for sale again. So they had another deal that fell through. And we're like, okay, we'll go in this time, but we need to have a little better representation. So we brought a real estate agent in, and it became very difficult because it made them mad, the owners mad. But we went through a lot of, I stayed back. I was like, no, I'm not dealing with this. You can deal with it. And my husband took over, and it was wonderful. And the real estate agent. But afterwards, when I was meditating, I was like, why all that craziness? The guide said, do you think life is just about your lessons? And I was like, working again? I was so mad. I was like, wait a minute, why couldn't I just create something flawlessly? And there are times when we can create things flawlessly, but there are also times when we are in service. So you may be helping somebody and you can't know it, because if you know you're helping them, you're going to look for pointers. Oh, I'll just tell them this. I'll just say, maybe you should try meditating, or maybe you should do that. No, our egos don't get to be involved in situations like that. Something happened over those few weeks, or maybe whatever it was, that I don't know what it is, and I don't care now because it's over. And once it's over, it's always less pain than it was when you're going through it. So when you're manifesting, you have to remember that it's not always all about you. If you're a light worker, it's about everybody. Also, we have to match the frequency we want. So you can't complain and say, I want this. Want is an affirmation of wanting. You have to be in the place that you're thinking of joy. Hold that frequency. And I call it it would be nice, because I found myself saying, oh, that would be so nice. That'd be nice. And then it comes true. And I find myself saying, I want this. I'm going to create that. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to focus on it. I'm going to collect pictures of it, whatever. And then it doesn't happen. So I know that when I manifest, there's always an attunement in my heart that happens. And I don't always duplicate that when I'm trying to manifest. So if you can find the place where you create easily and use that attunement and apply it to places where you don't create easily, you'll have the key to you. We all have our struggles and the places that we're afraid to accept, the places where we are not open to receive, or we're shut down. So you have to take your places where you're open and have them come to the places you're closed and say, we love you. Let's heal.
Yeah, that's
You
beautiful.
know,
I just want to add one quick thing. Like, I think I look at it like if your energy is in lack, you can create lack, right? If your energy is full and then you're holding it abundantly, it's easier for you to create, right?
Yes.
Mm.
yeah. And what I notice in manifesting is sometimes my ego wants everything to happen pretty quickly. And I have to wait for I actually feel something. I feel it right here. And
Yeah.
I feel the shift when I'm moving in the right direction. And then that momentary shift, it feels perfect, right? And then I can see I'm going the direction I want to go. It's just it's gonna take me steps to get there.
Yeah.
And you know what I love about you? You know, that I seriously, what I love about you is you epitomize such an authenticity within your spiritual um, being that a lot of spiritual people are wearing a little facade of ego to try to make them look as if they are somewhat superior or advanced than, and you're just being, and you've got such an enormous energy and such a beauty about you.
Thank you.
But I think where some of your greatest gifts come through is being normal as well, being authentic, and being able to share your humanness in the process. And I think that's equally as effective than just trying to share somebody a higher energy. You know?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm getting all.
Oh, we're all getting emotional
Yes.
today.
Yeah,
I
but
know. Thank you.
it's just true.
Yeah.
It's just
Thank you.
it's a real solid truth.
And
Yeah, it's
I
awesome.
think it's important for everyone to hear that's awakening, because, you know, when we go through these awakenings, they can get kind of messy. We're constantly learning lessons. And if we don't want to look at the lesson, they come back, right? So
Yeah.
I think, you know, although like for yourself sharing these stories and you're saying, you know, I was going through this in this period or learning this, it really helps people relate. Like, oh, Holly, like, is like, you know, I always look at you, I have you up here. I know I shouldn't put you that, but I look at you as just like such a pure source, like channel, and just a beautiful, beautiful soul, right? Like I was saying, I can't remember if I said this in the beginning or before we were talking, but when I talk to you, I feel like I just can only talk 100% truth, because that's what all there is when I talk with you. So I think,
Thank you.
you know, you're doing that too, and you're sharing, you know, these different little bits of information that really will help people. Because like, you know, Ron said as well, you know, sometimes the learning part isn't always the prettiest part, but it's when we kind of grow the most, you know, and it teaches or shows us this like epiphany or spiritual lesson or, you know, growth, basically. So I wanted to kind of just ask you, Lightworker Alliance, and then is there anything upcoming for Lightworker Alliance? I know you have a series called A Journey to the Sacred Garden. I think that's
Journey to your garden.
Journey to Your Garden, which is run through there. So if you want to touch base on that for anyone who's interested in taking this course with you, and anything that may be upcoming for yourself in the future. I know you just moved in that and you're getting settled.
Yeah. It's interesting. I worked constantly doing readings and teaching classes for a long time. And I took some time off from teaching to finish Divine Accordance. And I did not go back to teaching after that. So it's been about 2 years, maybe a little longer. And with our move to Florida, I just got grounded. I kept checking in. I'm like, it looked like the Empire State Building upside down. I was like, what are they doing? I have a grounding cord, like I always thought. So I just got grounded, which means that it's just now time to begin doing my work here. And I took some time off from readings because I was at my other house for 27 years. And it's a long time to work. doing what I do. I was doing readings for, I think, 17 years there. And it just needed to unwind. So much energy there. One of my clients, when I told him I was moving, I worked in a barn that it was finished on the top level and drywalled and everything, but he was in the barn. He goes, "No, you can't move. I feel like I was born here." And I was like, there's so much that happened there, and phone readings too. But I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't even started doing sessions yet since I moved, but I will. I'll be doing sessions soon. We're building a workspace for me, so that I'll be doing phone sessions until that's ready, and then teaching classes. I don't know. I might travel and do them. I have no idea, but I know I will be back. It probably will be 2020 before everything kicks in, but it will.
And how do people get in touch with you if they want?
Well, it's just to clarify, Richard, it's Lightworkers Alliance with an S. So you can go to my website, lightworkersalliance.com, and sign up on my newsletter. I have a newsletter, and I'm pretty lax about it right now. You can also join me on Facebook. I just use my personal page, so if you look for Holly Berger, you'll probably find me. And you can feel free to message me or contact me. You can email me through my website, and lots of information on there. And anybody who wants contact right now, just go on my website. There's tons of free stuff there. There's a bunch of free meditations. There's free prayers on there. My books are available on Amazon. You can just put in Holly Berger and you'll see those.
Yeah, I'm going to highly recommend everyone to go on to your website and check it out. I know there's one on there, Juggling Frequencies. So yes, during this wild time of ascension and all of the energies that are coming in and upgrades, and, we're constantly releasing and shifting, yes, it's a beautiful meditation to listen to kind of help recalibrate you and kind of put you in that happy space and juggle the energies in the most appropriate way. So I'm going to recommend that for everyone for sure.
Thank you.
Awesome. And if you have anything else to share, Holly, before we sign off?
Well, you might have noticed I have a lot to share. So I think I could probably go on and on. What I feel most like sharing right now is just my gratitude for the energy that you both are holding. It's so wonderful. I really see and feel the teamwork between the two of you. It's really beautiful. It's very grounded. It's very calm. And I think you guys are going to do great things out in the world together. And I want to support that in any way that I can. And I'm really just honored to be talking to you like this. It's really fun.
Making me emotional. So seriously, this is it's kind of like coming full circle for me in a way where I just, to sit down and share space with you is just such a beautiful thing. Especially, with my good friend Ron, for all of us to kind of be in this space and just talk with like-minded individuals about conscious conversation. I really enjoy it. And I just want everybody to really get what you were saying about the vertical connection and to really understand that is gold right there for everyone listening. It's one of the most, you were the first one that I truly learned how to do that well from. And so I highly recommend that. It's pretty much the only way is how I feel to do it as well. So I'm truly honored, Holly. I really am.
Awesome. So on that note, Holly, we want to really thank you because we're both honored. And we feel we all have a global mission. And as we're coming to, rising up into our own power, we're gathering, the family is coming together. And, the timing couldn't be better. So on that note, thank you for sharing your gift with us. And this has been the Journey to Awakening podcast. I'm Ron Airy, your co-host, with my co-host, Richard Luminous Melchizedek. And we will see you on the other side.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.